I've said this once and I'll say it again. America needs to be secure, and it starts with energy security. We're going to talk about that and much more on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
NAPE is a proud sponsor of the Crude Truth. Be sure to register for the NAPE Expo 2024, February 7th through the 9th at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. Hurry and register today. NAPE, where deals happen.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry, committed to being good stewards of the environment and providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Oil and Gas Workers Association. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Oh my
You
gosh.
had a good setup, man. Stu set it up really well for us. So go ahead.
Well, that's how we're going to start this episode off.
Particularly on this topic. There's
Yes.
90% of America doesn't get it right. So it's you and I are the apostles. We're the ones that are going to have to teach them. So let's go get them.
All right. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever it is you're listening. The voice you're hearing right now is the co-director, co-chairman of the Council for a Secure America, Fred Ziedman. Fred, how are you?
I'm doing great. And I've been chomping at the bit, ready to get on this show and get with you and educate America. I just hope there's more people on this so that we aren't preaching to the choir. Because unfortunately, most of the people that want to hear the truth are people that already understand it. But when I see what your crowd looks like, hopefully we'll be talking to the unfaithful and get them converted. So.
Well, and that's what this show is about. And that's why I hope people that are outside the industry can at least listen with an open mind, because that is all I'm asking people is because I do the same thing. If people want to talk to me about something, I'm going to listen. And if I disagree, I'm definitely not going to shove it in their face that I disagree. I'm going to be polite. And because as my mother taught me years ago, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Don't say it. That's right.
And but you know what you are a part of. I had the opportunity to have on not Robert Frost, but the great former Texas Rep Martin Frost. He's also part of the Council for Secure America.
Correct.
But for my listeners out there that have not heard of it and haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, can you talk to us a little bit about the Council for Secure America?
Sure. First of all, I would hope that my co-chairman's name, Harold Hamm, is a household word because if you look at his career, this is the man that arguably or unequivocally made America energy independent. He discovered the commercialization of fracking. He learned how to do that. He owns, for all intents and purposes, a great deal of the Bakken shale. And when he got his production up to 2 million barrels a day, that filled in the gap at that point in time for the amount of oil that we had to import. So Council for Secure America was founded about 30 years ago. I've been his co-chairman for the last 4 years. And it was founded for two purposes. The first is to educate America and to educate with some degree of specificity, the Jewish community, who of course has been very sensitive to the environmentalists and to a great extent left-wing politics, that our energy security came in being energy independent, that we were no longer going to be dependent on Mideast oil. And the other part of the agenda was the importance of Israel to the security of America, because the state of Israel was truly, I hate to call it the canary in the coal mine, because the canary has to die before you can figure it out, but is really our front line of defense, America's, in the Middle East. Those are the guys standing there taking the first shot throughout the Middle East. And so as Israel became more energy independent, and as things happened here and as politics played out here, and the environmentalists and the anti-fossil fuel advocates got more and more power in this country, our job became more and more critical. I mean, what are we doing now? You go explain to everybody that everything is made out of fossil fuel. I mean, all these alternative energies are dependent on fossil fuel. We will never get away from that, because you can't make their equipment or anything else without fossil fuels. And is there going to come a time where there is no more? Well, maybe how many thousand years from now, but by that time, we probably will have harnessed the sun. I mean, we've already written off nuclear energy, which is the cheapest source of power. Now we got to sit and wait for the wind to blow so we can get a wind tunnel. We got to wait for an uncloudy day so that solar will work. But the answer is, it's all about fossil fuel, and that's what has fueled politics. If you remember Dan Jurgen's first book, he said every war in the history of the world has been fought over oil. Yep. I took issue with him. I said I thought a couple of them might have been fought over religion, but he said it's all the same thing. He said it's all oil. You know, go look at the wars in the Middle East. I mean, it's about water. It's about energy. And so for this country to be so blind to the need for fossil fuel, and one of the things we talked about, look, there's a lot of ways to block production of fossil fuel. One way, and by the way, I think this administration is utilizing all of them. But the first way is to block the creation of pipeline. I mean, you can produce all the oil in the world, and if you can't get it out of the field and to a refinery, you've accomplished nothing. And so we've run out of trains, we've run out of trucks. You got no way to do this other than flare a god-awful amount of gas. And by the way, you know, I don't know if your exploration is gas or oil, but I'm sure you're well aware that everything you flare, every molecule is your money that's burning up there. So yes, that's a real problem. And then of course, the second problem is just forbidding drilling altogether, like they did offshore. But thirdly is permitting. If you can't get a permit, you can't drill a well. So an administration can say, oh, sure, we're big supporters of the exploration and production industry, but then they don't give you a permit. Well, we didn't tell you can't. Well, you just didn't give us the permit to do it. So holding up the permitting process, which has been a major issue. Those are the three primary reasons, if you ask me, that we're in the mess we're in right now, and that we've once again subjected ourselves to the whims of the Middle East. You know, I laughingly, Ray, I was fortunate enough to have visited with be invited to visit with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And I happened to be over there. And, you know, everything you hear is that we don't care about the Arabs anymore. We don't depend on them. Well, 2 days after I left, 2 days, he forgot to tell me this in all of our meetings. He cut the price of oil from $60 to $20. And he said, now you're going to tell me you don't need me anymore, right? Yeah. I'm the one that can still control the price of oil. I don't give a damn if I sell it for 20, my lifting cost or what, $6 or $7, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm playing the long game. So now he's back in charge of world production. And we still can't, to the extent we drill, we still can't get it out and move it anywhere.
No, I mean, it's you talk about that, and that's what people don't understand. And as I'm looking here, you know, I've had so many. As I was telling you in the pre-production, I want to see where the price of oil is at today, and I'm actually in front of my computer. Oh well, but no, people think that we're the ones that control the price, and it's like, man, we don't control any of the price, and
Nothing.
you know, I want to. You have unloaded so many questions there, and so I kind of want to think about how I want to go with this on these questions that you have, or on what you've just based on your statements that are 100% fact. But the first one I want to do is talk about Israel. Just as I'm a Christian, I believe that Jesus died for my sins and that God sent him here. Okay, that's what I believe. Right. But I also do know that Israel thinks a little bit differently than I do on Jesus and all, and that's fine. However, I do believe that Israel is our key partner, and it for religious reasons and for like your strategic reasons in the Middle East. Right. Why is it that this administration and the Obama administration are so, I think the proper word, and if I'm using it wrong, because I don't like throwing this word around, anti-Semitic, in my opinion. Why are they so against Israel?
First of all, there's a difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, are not being favorable to Israel. Now, that being said, I will tell you, as far as I'm concerned, they're both. But you're right. First of all, you know, Jerusalem is certainly the center of, you know, nobody could ever prove that Muhammad ever went to Jerusalem. So for them to claim Jerusalem to be their eternal city too, the Muslim religion, nobody's got any proof of that. They just want that Dome of the Rock to prove that we don't own it. But that being said, there is no question about it being the birthplace of Judaism and of Christianity. And as you know, there's a bit of a joke, if you will, which is probably told much more in the Jewish community than the Christian community. But you know, the only real difference between the two religions, and you said we have a little different twist on it, is whether or not Jesus was the Messiah or he was just a prophet. We don't question his existence. We don't question anything he has ever done. Our concept of the Messiah is that there will be peace on earth, right? Yeah, right. And that when the Messiah comes, there's going to be peace on earth. Now, the joke is, next time you're walking around Jerusalem and you bump into Jesus, ask him, is this your first time or second time? And that'll solve all the issues. Then there'll be no difference between y'all and us. But I mean, the only difference in the two religions, if you think about it, is whether or not Christ is the Messiah, or as we believe that the Messiah has not come yet, because when the Messiah comes, the temple will be there again, right? And there will be peace on earth. So we just got to get that
point. Yeah, and at that point, guess what? He's either returning for some, or he's coming for the first time for others.
Or he's coming for everybody. That's right.
And I will say this, you know, I hope, and I promise I'm going to get more to energy and oil and gas, is that when he does come back, Fred, that it literally is with the 6 white horses and just a white Ben-Hur looking chariot.
You got it. That's right.
I hope that's the way, because then there's no gosh darn.
Then there's no question about it. Then there's no question about it. You're right.
Like, you know, that's it. So, and of course we can unpack the meanings and all that, but not.
That's right. So yeah, but you know, if you think about it, you know, of course, and the other old joke was, if we were God's chosen people, why didn't he give us oil? Well, shit, he gave us more oil than he gave Saudi Arabia. We just never went and got it. And Amen. Now that we've got it, Israel, because of Israel's alliance with the United States, has always been, because we're a democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, and our alliance with the United States, we have always been the United States' eyes and ears into the Middle East. I mean, you've got Syria, which was a serious competitor, and now they're a puppet of Iran. You've got Jordan, which has somehow stayed pretty neutral through all of this, but it's really a tiny country. And then you've got Iraq, who is a major threat. You've got Lebanon on our north. Every time I start to hear about how we're the bully in the Middle East, right? And then they show this map, right? And I mean, George W. Bush's famous line, "We have driveways that are longer than from the Mediterranean to the Jordan border," right? I mean, this little bitty country like this, it's got 7 million people, and now 13 million, and you've got 600 million Muslims around us, and we're the aggressor and we're the oppressor. Okay, I mean, give me a break. Where do we get all that from? But Israel has always had the relationship with the United States, and obviously it is beyond a very, very, very dangerous neighborhood, all of whom would like to annihilate them. And so we've been so dependent, and the relationship between Israel and the United States has been so steadfast until Barack Obama.
Right.
And I mean, even if you go back to, I will give Bill Clinton his due, even if you go back to Bill Clinton, I mean, here was a major, major supporter of Israel. But here comes Barack Obama, who has studied, number one, he's been a community activist, and he looks at the poor Palestinians who arguably were uprooted and moved out of their land. Well, that was never their land, right? I mean, that was always Greater Israel from the start of the Bible. And so he decided to feel sorry for them. And so and his Black nationalism, which is absolutely anti-Semitic. Israel's not even a consideration with Black nationalism. Then he started shifting to some extent. Look, Joe Biden was always a good friend of Israel. I will tell you, when he beat Donald Trump in 2016, or in 2020, I said, the answer is, I'm not too worried about this because Joe Biden's been a good friend of Israel. Well, I don't know who put a bug in his bonnet, but I mean, from the very first day, but he had some seriously anti-Israel from the Obama days. Susan Rice, what was his name?
Anyway, Eric Holder?
But
no, not Eric Holder. Who was his?
Not Eric Holder. Who? Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes. They were totally not supportive. Gaza is attacking Israel, and they're killing children, and the United States is not supporting Israel. They're trying to get them to withdraw. I mean, none of this makes sense. And so you look at what's going on right now. We're having terrorist attacks every day. But Israel now does have, all of Israel sits on shale, except that the Israelis are so devoted, if you will, to the Bible that anytime you frack, if you think about this, every time you frack, you're destroying some piece of Israeli and Jewish civilization, right? Because the Jewish religion is there first.
Yeah.
So the Knesset, the government won't let anybody, they won't let them frack. They don't want them shattering any piece of history. Hello, you got to give up something. No, we don't.
Yeah.
And now they've got the offshore stuff. And I'll never forget sitting with Shimon Peres before he died, may he rest in peace. And his saying, finding oil is the worst thing that ever happened to Israel. And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? He said, it's going to make us soft. He said, we never had oil. We always had to fight for everything. Now we got all this oil. We don't have to fight for anything anymore. Well, you're going to have to fight for your existence, but we're going to get soft.
But no, did you say we're going to get soft? That's pretty near where I think that's where we're at here in America, is that we've gotten soft.
That's right.
And wow,
you're 100% right. And so you look at what Israel's done, and you look at its importance to I will tell you, just for instance, by the way, again, when I visited with the Crown Prince, And he had invited 10 of us, and we were the first Jews to ever be invited by the Crown Prince to come and sit down with him. And so somebody asked him about the relationship with Israel. And he said, we live in a pretty rough neighborhood. We got a lot of enemies around us. So we have to really watch what we say. But he said, why don't you watch what we do? We have very, very, very open trade with Israel. All of our intelligence and military technology come from Israel. You guys are sitting here today. We're changing the rules a lot, but we can't come out in full support of Israel. And then you get to the other agenda item for us at Council of Secure America, and that's the Abraham Accords. Yes. The Crown Prince basically said nobody was joining the Abraham Accords without our full permission, right? We can't say that out loud, but you can figure that one out. Everybody's dependent on us. And when we were in Bahrain a week and a half ago, and I'm sure you know this, I actually didn't. The first oil ever found in the Middle East was found in Bahrain. It was offshore Bahrain. And of course, and he also told us that they established trade relationships with Israel in 1948, 2 years after the creation of the State of Israel. So they've always had relations, but no one could ever say anything about it. Then we get Donald Trump and the Abraham Accords, and now everybody's talking about it. Yeah. And you look at Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince has a daddy who's pretty well steeped with all the old fraternity brothers from the old days when the Middle East was, created's the wrong word. I don't know what it formalized, right? Yeah. And, they're also sympathetic to the Palestinian people. Although one of the things that you need to know is that the Saudi Arabia particularly has cut back their aid to the Palestinian people by some tremendous percentage, like 2/3, because they finally came to realize that all this aid they were giving the Palestinians was not aiding the Palestinians. It was padding the Swiss bank accounts of the leadership of the PLO, the Palestinian leadership. And so they've cut back there too. But the answer is we are once again semi-dependent on Mideast oil because they've showed us that they still do control to some extent pricing. Okay. And if they want to stop us, even Harold Hamm can't produce oil at $20 a barrel profitably.
I can't today. I know I can't produce it. And then what that leads me back. I want to go back to the other thing you said about how how this administration is stopping us by shutting down the pipelines, slowing down permitting. And before, I compare that to the guns issues. It's like, they'll never outlaw the guns, but guess what? They might stop selling the bullets.
That's right.
Yeah. But you wrote a great. You've got 2 great articles, and I want to kind of highlight them both. One is you writing an article seeking permitting reform to boost energy production, and basically like, hey guys, we need to be drilling more, so we need to get more permits out there as quickly as possible.
Right. Look. First of all, as you could only be too well aware, and again, I don't know how deep you're drilling, and a wildcat's still a wildcat, but as time has gone along, exploration has become much more of a science than the old days. I mean, you're not looking at the old guys that used to walk around with one of those divining rods or whatever, and when it flipped like this, you dug a well, we're still to some extent in that mode. And so although we've made it much more scientific, there's still great risk, and we've got to find it. And now with oil moderately priced and our industry having gotten lifting costs down enough, we can now produce enough to make the world a much, much, much safer place, because we're not going to be dependent on energy to rule the world. And so we've got that. But as I said, and I'm sorry, I guess I probably said this before we went on the air, but I said, look, Joe Biden can sit there all day long saying, I'm totally supportive of the exploration industry. Well, excuse me, if you won't give a guy a permit drilling a well, what does he have to do? Wait for the oil to come out of the ground? I mean, this is not the Beverly Hillbillies, right? Where, all of a sudden you look down and it's coming out of the ground. You've got to at least give a guy a right to drill. You're not doing anything else. And it's interesting because when we were in Bahrain 2 weeks ago, they said to us, look, we understand, or we truly believe that the day of the low hanging fruit is about over for us. We can't go stick a straw in the sand and up pops oil anymore. We've got billions of barrels of reserve, but it's going to take a lot more technology to drill that than what we've been used to. And none of us are used to it. So we need people that are experienced in the more technical, deeper drilling, horizontal drilling, the more, again, the more technically difficult means of drilling to come into our country and tell us how to find oil. And by the way, the whole Middle East is just like us, only we're the smallest. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve, because 10 years from now, we're not going to, but wouldn't you love to be able to put that straw on the ground and, up pops oil? I bet that doesn't happen in your wells either these days. And so they are coming to grips with the fact it ain't going to always be this easy. And so we've understood that for a long time. We've developed the technology. Now we can't use it, right? They want to do away with our tax credits. They think we're not paying income tax and we're stealing all the money. They don't understand a dry hole. They don't understand that everything doesn't hit. They don't understand the cost of research. They don't understand, the cost of production. I mean, I got to tell you, they don't understand that half of it. And America doesn't understand that oil doesn't just pop out of the ground to make Christians in Texas rich and Louisiana rich. They all the Jews are filling up their car in New York, cursing all the Christians in Texas and Louisiana because they think they're just minting money down here. I mean, give me a break.
You're terrible. You said that, not me.
I said it. Blame me.
You're terrible.
I'll see it in the front page of some newspaper tomorrow, but that's okay. I'm having such a good time, Ray. I don't get many opportunities to tell people how the cow eats the cabbage, and that's what you and I are doing.
No, everything you're saying, I had an opportunity yesterday afternoon to take a couple of people out to the oil field. And it was just an honor. I even put them on top of our tanks, the catwalk, where, where we go look. And then I just showed the whole area. And it was like, here's a well, this is it, and see this. And and then the cows were out there. And I go, nobody wants to know how that great steak gets onto our plate. But there's the cow, and I said, so this is so.
Oh, and by the way, he's alive and eating the grass on top of the oil we're drilling, right?
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, he isn't laying dead because we polluted the ground. So
right. And so it's like, you can see where the drilling rig was at. And then so it's like, okay, so this is how it's done. It's like, there's a lot to it. And I take pride in my work, and they notice that also. And then guess what? We came back to Fort Worth and we went to that Hotel Drover and we had steaks.
And you had steaks. That's it.
But no, the other article I wanted to highlight that you have written, and this is the one that you did with Martin Frost. The title of it, it's time for America to reassess its role as both an energy and political power broker. And the thing about the entire title that more importantly is power broker, not reassess its power, but it's brokerage power. So can we just talk about that for a brief few minutes?
Sure. It's the leverage. Look, I'm much older than you, so I can't say we. I don't know if you slipped into that woke generation or not, but when I was growing up, we were all about American exceptionalism, and we saw America. And I remember going back, not even that far, back to the early 90s, and listening to a guy who passed away not long ago, Charles Krauthammer, who was a phenomenal journalist.
Yeah.
And this was right after the first Iraqi war. And he said, he was speaking and he said, look, y'all need to understand something. There is never going to be another true world war. America has got to be, there's nobody close to, no, this was right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. He said, there's no threat to the United States of America. There's a million little people that want to nip at our heels, okay? Yeah. But nobody can threaten our country. It's all American superiority, military superiority, and all American exceptionalism. Yeah. And now we reach a point where, and again, this all started with Barack Obama. I mean, I truly am giving Bill Clinton more credit than I probably like to, but I mean, he kept this stuff up. And once we got to Obama, who wanted to equalize the world and do away with American exceptionalism. So the first thing he did is he started unwinding our military and cutting back the defense spending. Yep. He then started, and Israel's a perfect example, he then started siding with the underdogs and giving them a much bigger seat at the table and not security checking them when they came through to make sure they weren't loaded with weapons. And he's allowed, he, and of course, the Biden administration of that, has allowed them to come in the room with weaponry that can kill a lot of people. And so, you know, that's what you're dealing with. So we have to have American exceptionalism. It's just mandatory if there's going to be peace in the world, because nobody else can maintain it. And you look at these little countries, and the perfect example, if you will, is if you look at Israel and you look at look how they're surrounded. Okay, you've got Jordan on their west. Jordan's not fighting with anybody ever, but they got Iraq right behind them. Then you've got Syria, who is a serious threat in the region, and are being supplied because of that by Iran. Then you've got Lebanon, who is a total puppet state of Iran. So Israel now has enemies around them. And then you've got Gaza, you've got Egypt sitting over on the other side, who would be just as big a player and are starting to play a much bigger role, except the last two times they tried to get into a fight with us, we demolished them. And so they have figured out maybe it's not in their best interest to do that. And so, but at the same time, I want you to think about this.
Yeah.
What's really important? What are the priorities? And if you've seen, there is some disputed territory up in the far northern part of the, not northern the Mediterranean, but the border area between Lebanon, Cyprus, and Israel, because everybody wanted to claim that oil. Well, it's clearly to some extent in Israeli water. But the reserves extend further. So I don't care how they're fighting on the ground. All right, they made a deal on that on that tract of land. They said, look, either none of us are going to win or we're all going to win. So let's don't fight over it. Let's divvy it up. The same thing on the, I guess, further down in the west, on the Egypt and Gaza parts of the Mediterranean. Yeah. Same thing. It doesn't matter the rhetoric. It doesn't matter what you hear. We have nobody, no American company, no foreign company is going to come in and drill it if they're fighting a war over it. Okay. Yeah. And, when the Israelis found the first oil in the Mediterranean, ironically, their security happens to be nuclear submarines. They've got our battleships surrounding those production platforms. I mean, they're not about to, and if you notice, the enemies aren't attacking it. It reminds me, Ray, I got to tell you, there's a story. I learned this back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And have you been in Israel?
I have not. No, sir.
Okay. So down at the absolute bottom of the Dead Sea, there are massive potash deposits. Okay. And Jordan owns the whole West Bank. Israel owns the East Bank. And the first time I saw those potash deposits, it was an epiphany for me, because I said every war that has been fought, and they're existential, right? I mean, there's no question they were being fought to destroy the United States, to destroy the state of Israel, right? Yeah. So there has never been an attack across the Dead Sea and an attack on the potash. The potash deposits are the major industry of Jordan. Okay. And so they knew they took one shot at our side, potash, we were going to blow up their potash, and they had no economy. So oil has been the great,
peacemaker,
peacemaker, because that's the one thing they won't fight over. They both know they're not going to go blow up one of our refineries. What's going to happen to them? What's his name even said to me, I'm sorry, what's his name? Bibi Netanyahu even said to me one time, as much as the rhetoric is, the Iranian leadership understands mutual destruction. So we, to a great extent, are not the least bit concerned about a direct nuclear attack from Iran. Because I used to laughingly say, when all the Iranian mullahs and leaders show up in Paris one day, then they're about to be a nuclear attack on Israel, right? As long as they're at home, they don't want to get blown up, and they know what's going to happen to them, so they won't directly attack. The problem is they're supplying this kind, bioweapons and whatever to the little countries that don't give a damn. I mean, the Syrias and Lebanons and Gazas, they're just nutcases. They're not going to win any wars, but they're just going to torment everybody. So you run into that serious risk. And here is Israel, who is, and I don't know if you know the rules over there. When we gave back the Sinai Desert, America agreed to supply us with all the oil in the Sinai, that if we ever didn't have oil, America would make up that difference. But as of a couple of years ago, we were supplying since we have gotten energy independent, Israel's supplying Jordan with their energy, and we're supplementing all the Egyptians. Okay. So the point is, they're not going to do anything to our oil, and they don't have any for us to blow up. But everybody over there understands mutual destruction. And that's another issue. And he can economically destroy us by cutting oil prices to $20 or whatever he wants to do.
Well, I definitely hope he doesn't. Fred, I cannot thank you enough for your time today. We're running short here on time on this episode.
I got it.
But if there's any parting words, and I didn't ask you this in our pre-production meeting. If there's something you want to leave individuals with, if I was going to use a hook or something to put out there, what do you want people to know about what you're doing, what you're fighting for? Because I feel like it's really been the last 30 minutes. Because the Council for Secure America is the utmost importance. You look at who you have that's a co-chairman with you, and Harold Hamm.
Right.
And so if you just don't mind leaving us with something, and how they can get a hold of a Council for Secure America.
Great. Well, first of all, we have a website. Go to the website. But all I want all of you to do, like I said, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, because most of your listeners understand this problem. And it's like I said, when you go to church on Sunday and the preacher's telling you about coming to church, well, the only people he's talking to are the people that came to church, right? They're not talking to the heathens out there who aren't coming. They're the ones that need to hear it. These are the facts in America. And Council for Secure America is spending 100% of our time trying to educate Americans. as to the reality of energy and energy economics and geopolitics in the Middle East. And listen to us and go out and be our spokespeople. Tell everybody you know. If you're living in Texas, or if you're living in, Louisiana, or maybe Alabama, some Arkansas, I don't know, up in the Northwest, North Dakota, you understand this. But if you're living anywhere, certainly north or east of the Mason-Dixon line, you need to hear this and you need to become a believer. So all I can tell everybody is the world does run on fossil fuel, and it always will, geopolitically and economically. And be a spokesperson for our industry. Be out there, and I say our industry, be a spokesperson for the energy industry, for the oil industry. We're never going to get it without drilling. And as long as we live in a country where you can vote administrations in that will prohibit permitting, prohibit pipeline, which is the only way left to transport it, prohibit leasing altogether on federal lands, which they did for quite a while, this country's in for deep, deep trouble. And so don't count on solar energy. Sure, you could count on nuclear energy, but you can sure count on America the way it's going to never let that happen. No. So, I understand China's got 23 nuclear plants being built right now. They understand. Yeah. So I'm sorry, that's a little too long, but Ray, you keep finding oil, and let me, Jennifer Sutton, and Harold keep trying to educate the world that this is the way America is going to regain its exceptionalism. It's going to grow. We're the greatest civilization in the history of the world. But we might not last forever. Every other great civilization lasted 200, 250 years. Well, hello, we're there. And you can see what we're doing to ourselves. It's going to kill it. So if you want your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren to enjoy what we have today, you better go educate some folks and get them squared away on the production, exploration production of oil and gas.
Yeah. And that's the crude truth right there. Fred,
that's the crude truth.
I cannot thank you enough. Thank
great.
you for your time. Definitely get ready, because I've already got some ideas on how we can do more. I cannot thank you enough. Shout out to Joe for introducing us and helping set this up. And that's it. And I just want to tell everybody, please check out the Council for Secure America. Check out Fred Ziedman's articles. I'm actually going to be sure to post in my notes these two articles we highlighted today. And I think anybody that believes in God understands what we're doing, and that it's not about shoving it down somebody's throat. It's just about talking and sharing with them the knowledge that we have, and yes, that's called education. Fred, thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, thank you to our sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Exec Crew, Oil and Gas Workers Association, Pecos Country Operating.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.